Welcome to the Simply Soccer podcast, everyone. Thank you for tuning in again this week. I'm definitely trying to keep these podcasts more consistent again by releasing them every single Saturday. That's what we're going to be doing for now. A few announcements. We're almost ready again to do live streams, so let me know if that's something you want to see again. We used to do them, I can't remember how long ago. I think back in the summer, maybe. Actually, no, it wouldn't have even been then. It's actually been a while since we've done those, so let me know if you want me to bring those back, because I definitely want to do them. I would probably do them either on Friday or Sunday, in addition to the podcast, so we'd ideally have both on the channel, so let me know if that's something you're interested in. And, if enough people call for it, maybe I'll finally get off my ass and do that. Because I know a lot of people enjoyed those live streams and being able to ask questions in real time and just being able to interact with me live. And I definitely enjoyed it as well. So definitely let me know if that's something you're interested in having back, because I am thinking about doing it. I know I keep talking about it kind of sporadically about bringing that back, but definitely want to if it makes sense and you guys want it. Other things. First, Ultimate Soccer Skills is still at a discounted price if you want to still get in there. If you want to basically get control over, your ability with the ball at your feet, your skill moves, your ability to dribble, how confident and comfortable you are in the ball, that's going to be perfect for you. Already have some players going through that are seeing results, and would love to have you in there if you're not already. I'll definitely link that down below for you. And get it while it's still at a discount. All right, so in today's podcast, I have a general idea of what I want to talk about, but it's going to be probably one of those ones where it's a bit spontaneous. I'm going off on certain tangents, and I may have spoken about this before, but, I like to reiterate certain ideas so that you can, kind of grasp how important they are, especially when they're repeated. When you see repeated information, and I've been noticing this especially recently, because I've bought a few books that I'll see some form of information in one and then it be repeated in another book. And I love it when there's those kinds of correlations from book to book or similarities, because it shows that these ideas are not, something that just worked for this person or worked for that person. They work kind of universally. Like one of the ones recently, a lot of I'm really into the practice of meditation. I believe it's an incredible practice. I fell out of doing it on a daily basis, but I'm getting back into doing it daily for at least 30 minutes. In fact, I just finished meditating this morning. And, one of the eye-revealing or eye-opening things about meditation is so many successful people, so many people who are living fulfilling lives have a daily meditation practice. I think it was Tim Ferriss wrote a book called Tools of Titans, and he said that 80% of the people he looked up, researched or, looked up and for the book or interviewed, he said had some form of daily, remember, meditation or mindfulness practice. So I'm always looking for those kind of correlations between what's working for someone and what's working for another person. And sometimes there won't be a correlation. Sometimes one thing works for someone and another thing works for another. You need to know yourself and you need to figure out what works for you and what doesn't. But there's like a happy balance, because I feel a lot of people will try something like meditation, which universally pretty much works for people, and they'll go, this isn't for me, just because it's difficult or different. So you have to kind of balance it. Something may genuinely not work or work for you, but make sure you're giving it a realistic shot, an opportunity, because the first time you try something, it may not work. But if you would just stick with it for a little bit and see if it actually benefits your life, then you can better gauge, what you bring into your life. And I found meditation, since we've already gone on a tangent here, has been, again, if you're not meditating on a daily basis, something to definitely, it just helps so many different areas. It helps with stress. It helps socially, if that's something you struggle with. It helps with kind of bringing things into perspective. It helps with awareness. It can help with overthinking, even on the field. If you overthink things, you can visualize as well, which is, in my eyes, almost like a form of meditation to a certain degree. So if you're not doing that on a daily basis, or at least pretty often, I would definitely consider doing it. And again, this does not have to be something extreme. I think last week in the podcast, we talked about incremental integrity a little more and about starting off at like a low level and chunking things to a certain degree so that you're not, trying to do an hour or 2 hours of something new. You're doing like 10 minutes. Now, you can do that for meditation as well. Do 5 minutes daily or 10 minutes daily in the morning of meditation. And maybe it sucks and you don't like it and you're not good with it. Well, stick with it. It'll get better. We so easily give up when something is difficult or new. Sometimes difficulty, we think new is difficult. And it's just not that. It's just there's a lot of resistance to it because you haven't done it before. New things, your ego and your comfort zone, automatically resist to a certain degree. So that's something just to keep in mind is to, when you're trying these new things, one, like we said last week, make sure you're activating or keeping incremental integrity. We talked mainly about working out last week, but this applies to anything. And, also, again, like these kind of things like meditation that across the board seem to help so many people are worth exploring in my eyes. When something's working for so many people across the board, especially people who are living fulfilling lives by their own thoughts, by their own standards, it's worth. I like to pay attention to those things because, again, there might be odd things like a certain unique quirky thing that you do that works for you that wouldn't work for someone else, and those are important too, to recognize like what things work for you. Maybe you have to work out in a certain place, do your work in a certain place. Maybe whatever it is, there will be those quirky things as well that are unique to you or unique to only a few people that work and help you in certain ways. But again, there are these things as also that seem to be universally helpful. And it's always a good idea in my eyes to, in that kind of case, jump on the bandwagon and reap the benefits of that. And meditation would certainly be one of those things. So yeah, so keep that in mind. So today I want to touch upon a few things. And I'm trying to remember it now, so I may have to pause this so I can just remember exactly what I wanted to talk about. I did have to pause for a few seconds there, but I remember it now. There's a couple things. Number one is habit creation. We haven't talked about that, I think, in too long in much detail, and I want to kind of throw something at you to focus on that kind of goes along with incremental integrity and these other things I'm talking about. And I also want to talk about growth mindset, which ties into it as well. So what I want to say about habits, because I fall into this trap so often, and I remember watching a video the other day of someone reminding me of this, and something where I was relating to this person because they did something similar to me. It was actually very eerie and kind of crazy how similar this person tried to develop habits. Because when I first kind of discovered that you can improve your life and you have so much more control over your life than you've kind of been taught, or at least most of us have been taught, and you can develop certain behaviors and habits. Once I started learning that, I went kind of gung-ho, like really into it, to the point where it was too much. I bit off more than I could chew, essentially. And what I did is I tried to develop so many different habits at once. Like I'd have habits for this part of my life and this, my workout habits and my eating habits. I was trying to develop my spiritual habits and my productivity habits. And I had all these different lists and I had to check off all these different things on a daily basis. And there were so many things. And I was able to maintain it for a little bit, but eventually I got burned out to the point where I would miss a day, then the next day, then the next day, because it really just took its toll on me because it was way too much of a change at once. It was way too much for my body, my mind, my soul, whatever, to take on all in one go. And that's what happened when I first got into habits. And I fall back into this sometimes. I don't fall back into it that often now because I'm, again, with experience of doing this, more awareness has come out of it. Meditation's helped me to kind of scale back on this. I still have a checklist I have every day with like little habits I want to get done. But I don't hold myself to the same standards in a way when it comes to completing it. Because I know that if I every single day try and strictly follow it, I'm going to burn out eventually. So what I want to offer to you, especially for those of you who have not developed habits, even if you have developed quite a few habits, I want to offer some advice I think is very pertinent and helpful to this, is that you need to focus on building one thing or very few things at first. Like again, my biggest thing when I first discovered habits, and I felt for the first time in my life some deliberate conscious growth, and we'll get into growth mindset in a second, and where that will lead you. But when I first felt that, again, I wanted to do it all at once. I wanted instant gratification. I wanted things to happen as quickly as possible. I wasn't being patient. And the problem with not being patient is you start to get into this mindset of trying to find shortcuts to do everything. And sometimes this is good, but I find most of the time this is bad. It's like trying to find shortcuts to becoming fit. There are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts to getting in shape. There are no shortcuts to eating healthy and reaping the benefits of that. It takes a certain amount of time or discipline to get there. And it's better to know that than to think there are shortcuts. Now, sure, there are certain things you can do that will be quicker than other things, but it's still going to take some time. And what I think I was unconsciously trying to do by trying to bite off so many habits and behaviors and actions on a daily basis at once for so many different areas was I was trying to speed up the process. I was trying to speed up a process that really couldn't be sped up or shouldn't be sped up, because it just burned me the heck out, and in the end probably set me back more than it moved me ahead. Now, the only good thing that came out of that was my awareness increased to the point where I was like, I can improve myself. So I took that out of that and took that away from that, which has been very beneficial, which has developed a growth mindset in me. But trying to bite off way too much at once was something that hurt me and continues to whenever I fall back into it. Because sometimes I forget, and I for a few days fall back into it and realize, hold on a second here. What am I trying to do? What am I trying to build? There's only so much I can do in one day. Now, again, there's a happy medium between this, because, you may use this as an excuse to do very little. And that's not what I want you to get at. Again, there's a balance. Don't bite off too much, but don't do too little, right? But what I want to encourage you to do is develop what's called a keystone habit. Now, each person listening to this will be at a different stage in their growth, right? Some of you may be just like I was, years ago, figuring out, holy crap, I have the ability to improve myself, and it's in my hands. Now, if you're at that stage, it's very exciting, and I get it, and you want to just dabble in everything, right? But there is a famous quote, and I can't think of it, and it's something to do with dabbling. When you dabble in so many things, you end up doing nothing. I forget what it is. But you need to focus on one thing or another. And one of the best ways, another thing just to throw in here, one of the best ways to improve faster is to learn from other people's mistakes and not make them yourselves. People think that the best way to learn is through your own trial and error, and that's actually the worst way to learn. Now, the good thing about that is you will learn, and if you've made mistakes, you should definitely learn from them. But the great part about the day and age we live in is we have so much access to information, we have so much access to people who have already been where you're heading, have already accomplished what you're trying to accomplish. And what you can do is you can avoid the pitfalls they fell for looking at the mistakes they made and not making those same mistakes. Richard Dawkins, the author of The Selfish Gene, actually explains this and says it's what makes us the most intelligent creature is we have this ability to visualize outcomes. And we have this ability to learn from the mistakes of others. Because in the wild, for most animals, they don't learn, they don't visualize. They don't have the capacity to do that. So they have to learn through trial and error. And sometimes if they make an error, they die in the jungle, in the wild, right? So the reason we kind of have this mindset of trial and error is because, back thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago, we needed to use trial and error to survive. But in today's age, you can use the trial and error of other people. So what this means is if you then go after this podcast and then you're in that first developmental stage where you're just discovering, holy shit, I can develop myself, I can improve, I can grow, this is exciting, oh my God, imagine me a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then you start going out and trying every single habit at once. If you then go out and do that after listening to me warning you not to do that, that's stupid. Because I'm telling you, I've already done the trial and error, and there was an error in doing that. Me biting off too much, more than I could chew. Of trying to develop too many habits at once. So you learn from my mistake. I didn't learn from the mistake of other people who had probably gone through that because I didn't look it up. I just kind of discovered these self-improvement things and all this other stuff. And it wasn't until later that I started reading about people who spoke about this, very famous people. Because I used to think what it was is people who were operating at a low level but were growing and improving and were eventually going to be at a high level would say things like, you need to develop habits slowly. But I was looking at these top people who had many great habits, not realizing that it took them a long time to develop all those habits, and not realizing that they also had to develop them one at a time. It's not that I mean, this may happen occasionally, but it's an anomaly. Most people don't develop, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 great habits all at once. They have what are called Keystone Habits. Now, the great thing about good habits is they play off of each other. Meaning, for example, if you start developing, let's say, for example, you're someone who is not consistently worked out ever in your life. If you start developing that habit, other good habits come from that. Good habits lead to other good habits. Bad habits lead to other bad habits. So by developing one good habit and you put in the time and effort and energy into developing the habit to the point where you can do it every day almost without thinking about it, then you can go on to the next habit. But you may actually find out, and this is the key thing here, is that even though you only were trying to develop one habit, so let's say working out consistently and you're doing that for 60 to 90 days or whatever, you'll notice that subconsciously or unconsciously, you've also developed other little good habits while doing that. Think about it. Like when you have to, for example, create a habit like working out, you probably are now also creating the habit of scheduling a little better so that you can get to work out. You may have noticed that you're eating more healthy because you're valuing your body more and you're working out and getting stronger and you're noticing gains or whatever. So you've noticed maybe subconsciously you've started eating better as well, which is developing a habit. So don't think if you're just focusing on one habit that there won't be other things that branch out from there. Meditation, for example, can lead. I mean, meditation is one of those interesting ones where I think a lot of people are reluctant to get into it because there are many intangible results. When you meditate, you don't, for example, wake up from your meditation and a pile of money is there, or you're stronger, like your muscles look bigger, like there's no physical evidence of your growth, but it is there. There are intangibles. And then maybe you do actually start making more money or you start getting stronger, and a lot of it was due to meditation, but it's not always as measurable and quantifiable. But meditation will also lead to many other good habits. So the point I'm trying to make is, if you're someone who, especially if you're starting out and you've just discovered self-improvement and you're just getting into your growth, or even if you didn't just discover it, but you found you're struggling to move ahead and you're struggling to grow, and maybe you're still in the same place you were 6 months ago or however long ago, try this. Pick the habit you think will influence, and use the Pareto principle here. Pick a habit or behavior that if you develop it, you think will impact your life in the most positive way, but just choose one. So is it working out consistently? Is it doing a certain type of workout? Maybe you go to the gym and you do high intensity interval training, HIIT training. Maybe you do certain drills. Maybe you buy a program like Ultimate Soccer Skills or something like that, and you commit to doing that fully, as best to your ability in developing the habit of training in that way. I don't know what it is for you, but choose a habit that's going to benefit you the most and focus solely on that. That needs to be the main thing you focus on. You can have other little things you do, little habits maybe, but that needs to be your main one. And you need to be very aware of burnout. So if you're piling up the habits and you're finding you're getting burned out and it's taking a toll on your mind and your body's just not getting, your mind and body are just, they're resisting the change too much, you need to scale it back a little bit and again, focus on that one, just that one habit. Maybe meditation for you is the one you want to focus on, which I would highly encourage. It's a great one to have. And you'll find so many other things come out of that. But developing it one at a time, and I feel like the resistance to developing one habit at a time is people think they're wasting time because they're like, well, why would I develop only one when I could develop 3, 4, 5, 6? But again, you would fall into the same trap that I fell into when I was first starting this stuff out, and I've fallen into since then as well, where I tried to bite off too much, more than I could chew. It became overwhelming, and then it gets to the point where I fall off and I'm not doing anything, and I get into this depressive spiral, which is the complete opposite of what I want to get out of doing these habits, right? The habits are there so that I can build a better life, become a better person, and do all these things. Now, for those of you who are further along and already have many good habits developed, you may be able to start doing a little more. Like for myself, again, I'm looking at a board I have. I have a bunch of whiteboards on my wall, like 8 or 9 of them, one big one and like 8 or 9 smaller ones. And one of them has like a daily habit list of little habits and some bigger habits. But the reason these are here is because a lot of these I've already developed. And it just feels good to check them off. So it doesn't become overwhelming. And I also, like I said, for a lot of the ones on there, I don't hold it myself to all of them to the point where I'm like holding myself prisoner that I have to complete them. So stuff on there are like my hour of power, which is a morning routine. I have read on there, which I do pretty much every day. Meditations on there. Tea, I drink this very healthy tea concoction, which if some of you may have seen. Workout is on there, journaling is on there, deep work 1 and 2, and that's so I complete deep work each day. And again, not every day do I fill up this board, but a lot of days I do. But you have to understand, all these habits didn't happen because I did them all at once. They developed over time. Now again, there's smaller ones in there that you could probably develop more than once. But when it's a big habit, a life-altering habit that you're trying to develop, seriously only aim for one. So the thing, like I have tea on there, that I can do that and also do meditation because it takes me 2 minutes to make that tea and drink it. So that's a small one. So those you can kind of pile up a little bit. Again, I wouldn't bite off too many of those at once because again, a habit's not something that you just decide one day you're going to do. You have to consecutively do this for so long. For that tea, for example, I've been doing that for so long, I don't even have to think about it. I always make sure I have the ingredients. I make it every single day without fail. I can't remember the last day I didn't drink it. It's become so habitualized I don't need to think about it, right? I still have it on the board because why not? I'm gonna check it off anyway. And it's nice to see another thing. It's nice to see because I'm like I'm becoming even a little bit more healthier because I had my tea. But just keep that in mind. So what you want is a main keystone habit. And again, this is going to be the habit that makes the most impact in your life. This is going to be a habit to focus on mainly. I mean, we could categorize habits into ones that are keystone habits and ones that are smaller, like my tea habit, for example, which is, one I can do while doing other habits if I'm building habits. So you can have these little habits that you build along with bigger habits. But if you're going to have a keystone habit that you're currently developing, see it all the way through until it's actually a habit and you can do it every day without thinking, and then move on to another keystone habit. So for example, maybe your one habit is the workout one, and you want to get to the point where you are working out so consistently so that it becomes a part of your life. And this will take a while. So you're focusing your main energy on that. And you'll find, again, other little habits will probably develop from this, like eating better, scheduling a little better, all this stuff. And then once that's become so a part of you that you just see yourself as someone who's fit and works out, and you go to the gym without even thinking, or at home and do your home workouts, whatever it is, then you can move on to another keystone habit. So maybe then it's meditation, which is a keystone habit actually. Yeah. So maybe then next is meditation, and you're like, I'm going to meditate every single day for 30 minutes for 90 days. And then you focus solely on that without missing a day. Because remember, it needs to be consecutive. You can't meditate 3 days in a row and then miss 2 days and then 4 days. And the reason I think that happens is, again, we get overwhelmed by trying to do too much. But if you just say to yourself every morning for 30 minutes, I'm going to meditate for the next 90 days or 50 days or whatever number. Just keep going until it's a habit, essentially. If you do that, develop that keystone habit. Again, not only will other little habits start to be developed, because with these keystone habits, there are other little things that kind of fall into place as you get better at them. Again, positive leads to more positive, good habits lead to more good habits. Again, the working out will probably lead to healthier eating. It may not, but all I know is, I'm encouraged to eat healthy because when I'm working out, I understand. And again, awareness is very important when it comes to this. Like if you're not aware that how important your diet is and how important eating well is, you probably won't. But for me, because I am aware of that when I work out, I'm like, okay, I don't want to ruin this workout by eating crap. I want to fuel my body. I want my body to grow. I want my body to grow quickly. I want it to recover quickly. And therefore, I want to have energy. So therefore I need to put what it needs in there. And working out just puts you more in tune with your body. You respect it more. You appreciate it more. So kind of eating better, naturally kind of is developed through that. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So keystone habits, other little habits subconsciously are developed through those, and you can have like even smaller habits, like little calibrations, like I have the tea and all that, as well. Okay, so that's for habits, guys. And I just wanted to mention that part because I do know, because again, I get these in the comments all the time. Probably not from you guys who listen to this podcast, because a lot of you, if you're listening to this podcast, you have a growth mindset. You have to, or else you wouldn't listen. You have a growth mindset. You're committed to self-improvement. So you probably already know not to bite off more than you can chew, but it's a friendly reminder. And for those of you who may be new listening to this, to get into that habit of not biting off more than you can chew, and recognizing that I know you want that instant gratification, but if you just stick with something, you don't it's scary because you want things to happen quickly, but you don't understand what will fall in place if you actually stick with it, because you don't know what's going to happen if you continue consistently working out for the next 90 days. You don't know what comes attached to that increased energy, that increased healthy eating, that increased adrenaline, that increased BDNF your brain will get. So much more will come out of that you're not already seeing, but you just need to make that leap of faith and do it, and understand and recognize you can't be biting off too many other things when you're trying to develop that habit, and to focus a lot into that habit. And again, once that's developed, then you go to the next thing and you develop that, and now you suddenly have this habit of working out, and now this good habit as well. So there you go. So really focus on that main keystone habit, and don't stop until it is solidified as a habit. And don't even focus on another keystone habit, especially if you're new to self-improvement, until you've developed that. Okay, so, all right, wow, that took up a lot more time than I thought it would. We can go a little longer today. So that's important when it comes to habits, guys. Again, habits is something I'm so passionate about, and something, again, I fall out of sometimes. Like recently, actually the last few weeks I've gotten back into it. I've recognized, oh God, I need my keystone habit back. I need to be developing that. And again, just because I'm not overwhelmed now and I'm dealing with that, a lot of other things fall into place. Okay, so next, let's go over growth mindset, which I'm sure you know what it is. Again, if you're listening to this podcast, pretty much anyone who's, we're like 20 something minutes into this, almost 30. Anyone who's listening to this point in the podcast, in my eyes, has a growth mindset, because you are someone who wants to grow as a person, become better, improve, and understands that it's within your control, has more awareness than the average person. Because the fact of the matter is, I mean, I don't know if this is a fact, but what I've observed, at least in people I hang out with, not people I hang out with, but in people I observe, right? I interact with. Most people don't have a growth mindset. They don't. Really, there should be, appreciate the fact, you should be proud, but appreciate the fact that you're here, that you're doing the work, that you are listening to this, taking in this information, expanding your awareness. And I know that if you're listening to this podcast, you probably view other channels and learn from them. You might listen to other podcasts. You might watch, videos that talk more about these topics, because when you have that growth mindset, that's what you seek out. You start seeking out things that will help you to grow. And for those of you who have not gone to that point, I urge you to develop this mindset. And there's even a book, I believe, called Growth Mindset, or something similar, which is basically the book about the psychological state of growth mindset, or this idea. Drink of water. So really make sure you have that growth mindset, because by having that, it ensures that you continue to get better. And again, I don't know if this is a fact, but I hear it from so many motivational people. They say this. They say that most people, and Joe Rogan said this is like in a motivational video I watched, or used to watch a lot, and he said the problem is most people are either stagnating, or no, he went like this: is either people are getting a little bit better, a little bit worse, a lot worse, or a lot better. And he said, I think that most people are actually in that little bit worse. That the average person is actually getting a little bit worse. Because they're probably functioning, they're going to work, they're doing their thing, but they're not committing time on a daily basis to improve. They're not consciously growing. They're not even admitting to themselves that they need to grow or should grow. That's the biggest trap, is when you get into a person who thinks that they're absolutely fine the way they are. And to a certain degree you are. Like, you're not going to be any less human by not growing. But the thing is, people then think that they should still be, and this, I'm not trying to sound insensitive, or I'm trying to inhuman or anything, but they think that not by adding more value, but people think they become a little entitled. They think that they deserve these things even when they're not putting in the work. And that's where a lot of complaining comes from. Complaining usually comes from this place of lack, of thinking you deserve something that you don't have, or thinking that you should have something, or that person has it and I don't. It usually comes from that place. It's like, I do all this, but the fact of the matter is, most people aren't willing to even admit to themselves that they are the ones that need to grow in order to get to that point. Maybe many players aren't starting games on their team, and the thing I always hear a lot in the comment section is, my coach sucks, my team, there's so many players I'm better than, but I'm not getting in the team. They're out to get me, whatever it is. And you know what? In some cases, this may be true. I'm not even saying it won't, but just understand it's going to be very few. Most of the time, we don't take a look at ourselves and go, what is it I can do? And what is it I need to improve in order to become more valuable to my team so that I'm playing more? Complaining isn't going to get you there. And you don't want to fall into that. That's why a growth mindset is so essential. Because when you have that, you just intuitively understand, you subconsciously understand that it has nothing to do with anything outside of you. Now, of course, there are going to be things that are unfair. There are going to be things that go against you. There are going to be things that, externally, that you are not going to be able to be in control of, but that's the whole point. You're not in control of those things, but you are in control of yourself, and you're in control of the way you think. So don't become someone who thinks they can't improve, and they're plentiful, because people let their egos get in the way, and we all have egos, and egos are not bad. Like, it's not bad to give into your ego. You can't really get rid of the ego. It's a part of you. It's there for a reason. There's probably an evolutionary reason that it's there, right? It's a protective mechanism. But there's a difference between using your ego for your own benefit, using it as the tool it was designed to be, and allowing it to run you. And when you get so defensive about things, like, I don't need to improve, this person just needs to value me more, blah, blah, blah. When that happens, you're allowing it to use you. You're allowing it to cast these illusions that, you're able to get these things without doing anything in return. One of the things I'm learning more and more as I go through my journey in life is value is received from value. The more value you give, the more you receive. Now, you shouldn't be doing it for that purpose, like, oh, I'll just, whatever, give value so I receive value. But it's every single person I research, every successful person, it's completely flipped the script for me, because when I was younger, I was always taught, like, people who are rich and are people who are rich or who are living lives of their dreams or whatever, must have manipulated, or must have been evil, or must have gotten there through shady means. And I used to believe that, but it's just not true at all. Every time I look at these people now, I look, wow, that person got to where they are because they gave so much value to other people. I just went off on another huge tangent there, but getting back to growth mindset is, that's just what you want to aim for. Get that growth mindset. Recognize that if you have a growth mindset, you are in a very small minority of people, but you're in the minority you want to be in. You're in the minority of people who wake up every day and go, how can I be better today? How can I fulfill myself more today? How can I improve myself today? And then when you bring all of these other ideas together, and again, it's going to be a journey for you. Just like when I first started out with this journey, I bit off way more than I could chew. And I probably needed to go through that in order to learn more. But again, you don't need to go through that to learn more, because you're hearing it from me. You're hearing my mistake that I've made. And this is why I also encourage people to read a lot and read specific things. Don't read fiction. I mean, you can read fun books like Harry Potter or whatever you want to read. I like those books too. But in the last few years, I've only read self-improvement books on psychological phenomena, books on how we operate and how humans function, so that I can understand more about what makes us tick. Books on psychology, books on science, because the reason behind this is the more you learn and the more awareness you gain, the better you'll be. The more like biographies you read and the more mistakes you hear people made, the more you can avoid those mistakes and you're already a step ahead, Because if you hear something like, for example, maybe a former professional soccer player going, if only I stretched every day, I would have avoided this injury. Well, you look at that and go, maybe I should work on my flexibility and mobility. Or maybe you read something about someone who started a business venture and he made this critical mistake that caused his first one to be a catastrophic failure. And again, he learned from that failure and ultimately became successful. I mean, persistence will ultimately always win out. But that doesn't mean you have to make the same mistakes. You will probably make mistakes as you go forward. You definitely will. But the goal isn't to deliberately make them. You want to avoid them. You just don't want to be paralyzed from the fear of making mistakes. That's the point. That's when people go like fail and fail fast, that whole saying, which I think is more just a call to action, saying that don't let the fear of failure or mistakes paralyze you and stop you from moving forward, because ultimately, if you just keep going, you will succeed in whatever you're going for, most likely. But again, it doesn't mean like someone says, don't do this, and you're like, oh, well, I got to do it, so I make the mistake. No, that's silly. Deliberately making a mistake is not the way to go. It's just that when you do, just understand that this is not the end. It may feel like the end. It may feel terrible, but it's fine. You can learn from this and move forward. As they say, you either win or you learn. You succeed or you learn. Okay? So continue to cultivate this, guys. Continue to listen to stuff like this. Continue to listen to things that motivate you, things that give you those ideas. Continue to have that growth mindset. And I promise, like, the more you read, the more you commit to learning and the more action you take. That's important as well, because I've gotten into analysis paralysis before, where I've just been reading so much information and taking all these courses and not taking action. And although it still benefited me because I still have those ideas in my head, but the true results started to come and will continue to come as I started taking action on what I learned. So you learn, you got to then take the action. I think I made a shirt on this. You got to learn, you got to take the action, you improve then, and eventually you stand out. I mean, that's what you want to go for. So as you're going through this growth mindset, understand that there's two parts to it. There's the learning phase, and then there's the action phase. Okay, and there's more nuanced stuff. Then there's like the observation phase and all this stuff where you're like, does this work? Does this not? Da, da, da. There's the experiment. You got to experiment. But that's mainly what you got to be doing if you want a growth mindset. Is continually learn, have that happy medium. Don't bite off too much more than you can chew, but don't be lazy. Don't use that as an excuse to, oh, I guess I'll just get up and do something for 30 minutes and go back to bed. No, don't do that. But again, the more you have a growth mindset, the more this stuff you'll just learn and learn and learn and get better. And don't be afraid of making mistakes. That's the point. You don't be afraid of them. Don't deliberately make them, but don't be afraid. Like if you have an action you want to take or a path you want to go down and it's possible that you might fail, that's not a reason not to go down that path. Again, if you know it's going to be an absolute failure for sure, because someone else has done it, it's been a failure. Even then, there's a whole thinking process you can go through, which would still have you do it. But that's different. But don't have the fear of failure or mistakes prevent you from actually taking the action. So develop that growth mindset, guys, essentially. And again, all of this stuff will start falling into place once you have that growth mindset and you move forward and you build momentum. Like all these good ideas that we've been going over in these podcasts, the consistency starts to fall into place with the growth mindset. The momentum you build from growing every single day is huge. And like that's such an important concept to understand, guys. Look up momentum, look up some videos on the power of momentum. Like it'll blow you away. This is why I'm always talking about consistency. This is why I'm talking about now developing that one keystone habit, because you might look at that and go, well, it's just one thing. But that one thing can build so much momentum in your life in so many different ways. It's so powerful. It's such a powerful idea. And that's why I don't want you to think these ideas are too simple or think that they don't work. I want you to experience these things. I'm getting excited just thinking about it because now I'm thinking of the ways these things have helped me in life. And it's also making me think of all these different ideas of what I can do next. But yeah, these will all come together, and just keep being persistent with it. Keep that growth mindset intact. Like we talked about earlier, develop that keystone habit and go all in on it. Keep going until it is 100% developed, it is 100% a part of you, and then move on to another one. you know? And if for some reason, you know, that first Keystone habit, you start to move out of it a little bit, go right back into it and start doing only that again, because obviously you haven't developed it into a habit quite yet if you're falling out of it. Okay? All right, so this is a long one. This is probably the longest podcast we've done in a while. I can't really think of much more to go over. I think you get the idea. Is really just, you know, I mean, just thank you for being, you know, for doing this, guys. I think it's just another thing is appreciate yourself for even listening to this, because again, not everyone will listen to podcasts in general, or podcasts that are, you know, predicated around growth, predicated around improvement, around habits, around things that will actually help you in some way. So, you know, you can give yourself a pat on the back, that whole thing if you want, but just be appreciative and love yourself for actually doing this, for doing the work. Because again, not everyone will listen to a 40-minute podcast, you know, from a soccer YouTuber with less than 100,000 subscribers. But you have, and really take comfort in that fact that you're doing the work. You're putting in, you're applying the growth mindset as I'm speaking right now. So thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it so much. Each and every one of you that's listening, and each and every one of you that subscribed and watched the videos in general, like just to take a moment and tell you how appreciative I am for it. You know, I love you guys. I love that you're doing this. I love that you want to grow. And, you know, I will keep hopefully doing, you know, doing something that can help you along that journey, and doing as much as I can to help you grow and improve and get better in some way every day. So there you go, guys. I think we're going to end it there, because I'm going to get so emotional, and also because and more importantly, because we're over 40 minutes, I believe now. So thank you so much for tuning in. Again, feel proud for actually being here and doing the work. Let's get a hashtag going, because I really should think of these ahead of time, but whatever. What do we talk about? Keystone. Let's do hashtag Keystone for Keystone Habit. You can put hashtag Keystone or hashtag Keystone Habit. And again, what that lets me know is you've listened all the way to the end. It helps me identify those of you who do have a growth mindset. So if you have a comment, a question, and you put that hashtag in the comments, I'm more likely to answer you. And even if you don't have a comment and you don't have a question and you just have listened to this and you don't have anything to say regarding it and you just have taken it in, put hashtag Keystone in the comments anyway to let me know that you've listened, because I like to be able to identify the people who listen all the way to the end and are committed to growing and improving. You know, I like having that little tribe of people who, and identifying them and seeing them for myself, who are actually committed to this and becoming better, and who are supporting the channel by listening all the way. So I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here. Again, just another plug for Ultimate Soccer Skills. If that's something that interests you, take a look down below at the link. Again, I really want to see as many people in there as well, speaking about growth and improvement. You know, I'm doing everything I can in that course to help you as much as possible. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you so much, and I will see you either in the next video you watch or podcast. Take care.